Unboxing of this bike light set from Amazon. These are sold separately and this is from brand Nean. I bought this for two reasons mostly. The ones I had before, this one here and also this one here. This one is from Alibaba and this one here is from Prophet. Had these rubber bands. These rubber bands, after some time exposed to sun, tend to tear up. Also, because you can just detach it very easily, I had two sets of these stolen. So the idea was to at least make it a little bit harder for a potential bike light thief to steal it, and therefore this mechanism here is at least with a screw, even though you can still screw it off. But it takes a little bit longer, so therefore someone who might observe what you are doing as a bike thief might then be intervening, and therefore the probability that you still are gonna make it as a bike thief might go down. Therefore the projection or the prediction of the bike thief might result in him maybe not trying to steal my bike light. Both show here that they are according to the German law, which is for the streets and for driving. Both also charge via micro USB, not USB-C, but in devices like this, micro USB is still very common since, I don't know, maybe it's just due to a latency in adoption of these newer standards like USB-C. So in here now we find a USB-C cable, at least in the rear light. The rear light I bought separately from this light, as I mentioned already, which reversely also means that I bought this independent of the other light. But of course they are from the same company and so they look kind of similar and also fit together kind of similarly. In terms of price, the backlight cost me $12.90 and the front light cost $14.90. Compared to the one I bought from Alibaba, this is of course a little bit higher in terms of price. I even got multiple ones of these for I think a few euros on Alibaba, but this is also very small and it also is very bad. If you just compare the sizes, and the size obviously does not actually correlate with potentially more brightness and also more battery life, but if you just compare the sizes of these three, this is the one I usually had, and I also had multiple bikes in the past, so therefore I just bought this as kind of the standard version. And something similar to this you can also get at stores like Decathlon. This is the one from Alibaba, so this is quite small, and if I compare them here, if they would stand next to each other, then it's quite clear that this one is the biggest. So if we then take a look at this, it is still rechargeable and it is also fairly bright. If we then press again, it doesn't change anything seemingly. So let's check it again first. Then it goes a little bit darker, I think, a little bit darker again, and then it turns off. So very simple. Now if we take a look at this here, it turns on, it turns off. It turns on, it turns off. There are also lots of rear bike lights that have like these different patterns that blink and go kind of across, which might be very useful, especially if it's not that bright, but also it's kind of easy if you just get off of your bike, you drive it into the bike seller, for example, and then you just click once and it's off. Similar to this, if all the different bike lights have kind of different mechanisms to turn them on and turn them off, then it is just very complicated to remember, as I recently noted as I changed the bike lights. Now this also means I have two additional USB micro cables, which are also often useful. They might be not very long, so let's take a look at how long this actually is. Probably 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters. Let's actually measure it. I think usually the adapters themselves don't go, or the plugs themselves don't go into the measurement. So this is about 25 centimeters in total with the plugs, and or about 28 centimeters. And the cable itself is then about 22, about 21 to 22 centimeters. In terms of construction, one of the major downsides of a construction like this is that there are these rubber rings in between, because the different bike tubes have often different diameters. So therefore you need multiple ones of these, and sometimes you still don't have then the right size, and this then doesn't close down. So this means that you cannot really install it. Another potential downside is that if we take a look at this up closely, now we can see it, then there is just a normal nut in there, which has the downside of being able to fall out. There are also different constructions available where this is kind of either glued in here or it is actually fixed in there. But if it is fixed in there, then if something in there breaks, then you can kind of throw away the whole kit. In the recent history, I therefore now had multiple bike lights on my light which never worked, and which I also had to charge like every 3 days, even if I didn't use them. If I didn't use them once, and therefore I think this and then having these others will improve my bike lighting situation up to the point where I don't have to worry about this much. I also didn't find out from the Alibaba one how it actually detaches without breaking. I just couldn't find a mechanism that actually would allow detaching both of these things. So I had used cable binders, one cable binder, to go through here and here to actually put it, at least the construction or the holding mechanism, to the tube, bind it to the tube, such that a thief would only get this one, but not the actual holding mechanism. And this is one of the big problems. If you have something like this, then you can just detach both. But if you then have something like this, then to detach both, you kind of need to detach this one, which is just a little bit more complicated. And also, as you are seeing here, it just takes a little bit of time. And then if the nut falls off, then you might not have a fully working set, and only then you would have to find something like this. So what I'm saying is that the threshold for stealing something like this might potentially be just a little bit higher, and that's what I'm kind of betting on, because in here I don't have an additional mechanism I can use, such as the cable binder, to then make it harder to steal the whole thing. Now, in terms of the mechanism, we have this one here, and then there is this thing here, and then we can press this, and then we can slide it out again. Very easy, and also very easy to understand. In the rear now, on the rear light, we do have both of this here and also this here is held together by this here, and so we have to adjust this accordingly. And this also snaps kind of in place, as you might hear here, and then we just slide it in, hopefully somehow like this. And there is also again something that actually snaps in and lets us press, and then we can ideally detach this again if we can without breaking it. This in total therefore cost me 27 to 28 euros. Older sets of this one, because it was not available, but I wanted to have the same one, also cost about 20 to 30 euros, sometimes a little bit more depending on the shipping cost. And as mentioned, the one from Alibaba, which is not very good. But of course, most of these are produced in China anyway. It is just that they are sold at a higher margin than on Amazon. But in addition, you then can blame someone if there is something that goes wrong. So in addition to just being a higher margin, you also then have potentially a company that answers to your requests of this breaking down, for example. One could also say you buy an additional responsibility label. In terms of the instructions, there seems to be a LED that notifies us whenever the battery is low. There seems to be a red LED in there. Then we also have a green LED if it charges. It is rechargeable via USB, and the same applies for the other one. You don't need any tools for actually putting this onto your bike. Both are also splash proof against rain. In terms of the size of the battery, we have 480 milliamp hours here with lithium, and we have 1700, so about half of what your smartphone holds, in this big one here. This charges 2 to 3 hours and then has a light or bright, or can show light, can act as light for about 6.5 hours at 100% of brightness. And this other one has at 50% brightness 6.5 hours, at 30% brightness it has 13 hours, and at the maximum brightness, which is the third one, it has only 4 hours. So in order to save some battery, you might switch to the third mode, and then it has 13 hours compared to the, I think, 3 hours I would have on here. This is quite good. And this is probably still bright enough in this mode. I don't know how many lux this one has, but this one has, in the best mode, 50 lux, in the 50% mode 25 lux, and in the 30% mode, it has 15 lux. So I just looked up how much lux the flashlight on my Galaxy S10 has, and the value that came up was 50 lumen. But if you have 50 lumen, you need to convert it. So you take the lumens, which stand for luminous flux, and then you divide it by the surface area in square feet in this case. But there is also a calculation with square meters. So the 50 lumens on 1 square meter on my Galaxy S10 would result in 3.9 lux, or about 4 lux. But probably there is a standard for the lux that are named on something like this on here. A standard in terms of the surface area or the distance. Actually, what I did enter was the spherical radius here, but the physics right now is too unclear to me to go further into this, so it's probably just a little bit brighter than my Galaxy smartphone torch. In comparison, this is my Galaxy smartphone torch, and this is this here, and at its brightest, it almost glares the screen.